Hello everyone, it's Scott, and we're back for day 2 evening previews from Final Fantasy. We got some cards that came out in the evening last night. I want to go through those. But before we do, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Final Fantasy preview season and beyond. And remember, if you're looking for cards from the set, you can check us out on the web at caffeinatedgamers.tcgplayerpro.com. Alright, so let's dive into the preview. So we only got one rare tonight, and it was Astrologican's Planar Sphere for 1 and a blue mana. You get an equipment, and it has a job selection. When this equipment enters, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, then attach it to it. So when it comes into play, it immediately attaches, which is nice. It's that 4 mirrored in ability that we've talked about a little bit. Equipped creature is a wizard in addition to its other types, and has whenever you cast a non-creature spell and whenever you draw your third card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So very nice abilities on this. Basically, it's a +1/+1 counter card where you're going to be able to gain +1/+1 counters, whether it's the 1/1 hero that you're putting those on, or whether you've moved it to something else, and now you're going to go ahead and add +1/+1 counters to that as well. And if you do draw 3 cards in a turn, well, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it as well as an additional benefit to it. So I think this is definitely playable in Standard. The question is, again, where is it going to fit? And I think we're probably going to have an equipment deck based on what I'm seeing so far from the set. Now, what colors that's going to be in, I think that's yet to be determined. Alright, we've got some additional artifacts. So our first is White Auracite for 2 and 2 white mana. You get an artifact, and when this artifact enters, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this artifact leaves the battlefield, and it taps for white mana. So it's our typical exile a card or non-land permanent your opponent controls card. The downside is it costs an additional mana, and the upside though is it does tap for mana. So I think this has, certainly in limited, is going to be a very playable card as removal. And we'll see if it has any relevance to Standard. I think that fact that you can tap it for mana might give it some more Standard playability, but typically we're not even seeing these kinds of cards currently see play in Standard. Next, we've got Phoenix Down for a white mana. You get an artifact, and for 1 and a white mana, you can tap it and exile this artifact, and you get to choose 1. Return target creature card with mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, or you can exile target skeleton, spirit, or zombie. So I like this card. I mean, it's an uncommon. And the reason I like it is most of the reanimation spells that we have, that are costing, 2 or 3 mana, they only are going to get you a creature that's 1, 2, or 3 mana. This one will get you 4 for that extra mana. So I think this has Standard playability in the right build, because being able to get a Sheoldred back from your graveyard, for in essence 3 mana, I think that's more than worth it in Standard. And we know we've got a lot of quality 4-drops in Standard, so I think this has some potential to see Standard play. Alright, next we've got Sage's Noliths. Not sure how to pronounce that one. For 1 and a white mana, you get an artifact. That's an equipment with job select, so you're going to create that 1/1 hero token. An equipped creature gets +1 and has, whenever this creature attacks, untap target attacking creature, and it is a cleric in addition to its other types. So again, another one that I think is probably more for the limited environment, but the ability to untap an attacking creature is actually helpful in Standard, so that way you can attack with something and then leave it as a blocker for the next turn. So I think there's outside chance that might see some play beyond limited, but probably this is more of a limited card. Alright, next we've got Zack Fair. Legendary creature that's a human soldier. He's a 0/1, and Zack Fair enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, and for 1 you can sacrifice Zack Fair, and target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. and put Zac Fair's counter on that creature and attach an equipment that was attached to Zac Fair to that creature. So this is obviously designed to be a creature that you cast it for 1 mana, and then you're going to be adding equipment to, you know, that kind of the Voltron effect that we sometimes see in Standard. So I think probably this is playable. The fact that you can sack it and make something else indestructible is a really powerful ability, and we know from previous Standard seasons that a creature's ability to give another creature indestructible has been useful in Standard. So I would think that Zac Fair has some Standard playability. Next, we've got Barret Wallace for 3 and a red mana. You get a legendary creature. That's a human rebel. He's a 4/4 with reach. And whenever Barret Wallace attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of equipped creatures you control to defending player. So obviously in a deck where you've got a lot of equipment, this could be a bonkers ability on Barret Wallace. So I think if we do have a dedicated equipment deck in Standard, Barret Wallace could potentially be at the top end of that, because, you know, just every time he's going to attack, he's going to deal direct damage to your opponent for every equipped creature you have. And we know that with the For Mirrodin cards, the Job Select cards, it's going to be pretty easy to have a, you know, fairly wide board where Barret Wallace's ability could do 5+ damage to an opponent on a given turn when he's attacking. Next, we've got Circle of Power for 3 and a black mana. You get a sorcery. You get to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Create a 0/1 black wizard creature token with whenever you cast a non-creature spell. This token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Wizards you control get +1/+0 and gain lifelink until end of turn. So if you're able to cast this and then string together some additional spells, you'll get some lifelink out of the damage that your black wizards will create for you. Probably only limited playable though, because you're getting 2 cards, yes, but you're losing 2 life, and the lifelink on your black wizards is nice. But it probably isn't going to be replacing the damage that you've lost because you've played the card. Alright, that brings us to the last card of the day, which is Laughing Mad. For 2 and a red mana, you get an instant, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you have to discard a card. You get to draw 2 cards, and then it has flashback for 3 and a red mana. I think the only reason that this would be played in Standard is because it has flashback on it. Outside of that, we've got better 2 mana options that do exactly the same thing in Standard, but having the flashback ability maybe to get it a second time for just 1 additional mana might be worth it in Standard. Alright, so those are the evening previews for Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy. Tell me what you think, and I will be back later today with a new video with the previews from Tuesday. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.